Bonne soirée tout le monde. Good evening everyone and welcome to this mid-mandate update. Avant de commencer, je tiens à souligner que nous sommes rassemblés ici aujourd'hui, moi et Hayley, sur des territoires autochtones non cédés. Nous reconnaissons l'importance de la réconciliation et l'engagement avec la justice sociale pour les membres de notre syndicat. Welcome, Hayley. It's nice to have you here with me this evening.
Thank you, Alisha.
And now that we've done the opening, for those who don't know, I'm the National President of the Union of National Employees, and joining me today is Hayley Millington, Executive National Vice President of the Union of National Employees.
I'm so happy to be here to share mid-mandate information with the membership. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this virtual town hall. We are now at the midpoint of the mandate, and we want to take an opportunity to...
Alors nous voulions entendre de vous nos membres. Nous nous basons sur les principes du syndicat. L'égalité, la démocratie, la justice pour les travailleurs et travailleuses.
I have been propelled forward by the mission of the organization and the union, driven by the deep commitment to advocate for our members and advancing our collective goals. We have been approaching things differently since emerging from the trusteeship. As we initially lacked experience to manage ourselves, I have been mandated to review our business has been conducted and ensure strong, more effective pathways. Hayley?
Absolutely, Alisha. Over these past months, we've been hard at work advancing the priorities of our members. We've had to tackle challenges. We're working diligently at building a stronger, more engaged union. So today's session will focus on where we're at, what's ahead, and of course, we hope to have enough time to answer your questions.
We love answering questions from members. That's one of our favorite things. Since the beginning of my mandate, significant strides have been made in strengthening and growing our organization. We have focused on expanding our reach, increasing membership engagement, and ensuring that the Union of National Employees is well represented at the National Board of Directors of the PSAC table. Our presence at this level has allowed us to advocate effectively for our members and to influence key decisions that impact our union. A key priority has been evaluating and refining the organizational structure to enhance efficiencies and responsiveness. As the National President, I am mandated to build and oversee the executive team, ensuring that the work collaboratively to uphold the union's mission and our objectives. I have also been committed to reviewing and upholding policies and bylaws, ensuring that our operation remains transparent, accountable, and aligned with our core values. This includes providing political advice and strategic direction to move the union forward. Through these efforts, we continue to lay a strong foundation for sustainable growth, increased representation, and more effective union that serves its members with dedication and integrity. The UNE has limited resources and must steward those resources with great care. We strive to identify and develop and spread examples of best practices to maximize the impact of our work and engagement with membership. Hayley?
Since the beginning of the mandate, I've been committed to strengthening risk management practices and ensuring financial responsibility within the organization. This has involved the issue of identifying potential risks, implementing mitigating strategies, and of course, fostering a culture of accountability and transparency in all financial matters. We have taken proactive steps to assess and stabilize UNE's financial health, ensuring that resources are managed effectively in order to support our members, and organizational goals. In doing so, we closely monitor budgets, the expenditures, and financial policies. We are reinforcing a strong foundation to enable us to have long-term sustainability. Additionally, we have prioritized fiscal responsibility to ensure that every decision made aligns with the best interests of the membership. This includes reviewing financial processes, enhancing oversight mechanisms, and ensuring that our union operates efficiently while maintaining financial stability. We're also implementing new procedures and processes that adhere and align to our bylaws and policies, most of which was mandated by the trustees in their final report of what UNE had to implement in order to avoid a future trusteeship. Mandated to forensically look at every way in which business was being conducted. That includes financially, representation, training for staff, national executives. So coming out of trusteeship, our work is in an attempt to ensure that we remove ourselves and get away from the path that led us into trusteeship. Through these efforts, we continue to build a resilient and accountable organization, prepared to navigate challenges while upholding the financial integrity of our union.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Hayley. Our vision for the organization. 1, activity-based budgeting. Implementing a budgeting approach that tracks spending on members' engagement activities, ensuring transparency in financial decisions by clearly reporting how funds support members and initiatives. Enhancing training and committees. Strengthening the implementation of training programs to empower members with knowledge and leadership skills. Supporting and growing committees, such as the Women's Committee, to create space for advocacy and meaningful change. Member engagement and communication, keeping members informed on key issues through virtual town halls and direct updates, providing regular opportunities for dialogue between leadership and membership to ensure concerns are addressed. The young workers' involvement, following the success of the UNE's Young Workers Conference, the first ever Young Workers Committee, to amplify their voices, addressing numerous resolutions that emerged from the conference and ensuring they're translated into action. 5, a mock convention initiative, taking a mock convention on the road to educate members about convention procedures and ensuring members feel prepared and confident when participating in official convention. I know for many people, when you go to your first convention, it's very nerve-wracking to go up to the microphone. What we want is members to go up to the microphone and actually take part in guiding the organization. And so this initiative, I think, is really going to strengthen the members' ability to actually participate in convention when we go back in 2026. And that's what we wanted as an organization. We want members to have their voices heard and to feel confident about going up to the microphone. The vision is centered on transparency, education, engagement, ensuring that every member has the tools and opportunities to contribute meaningfully to UNE. Hayley?
We are committed to creating opportunities to learn and grow together. The vision for the rest of the mandate. First off, I'd like to start with the structural review.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you. So as those of you online may know, during the 2023 convention, a resolution was put forward with regards to UNE conducting a structural review process. That is underway. In terms of, we have chosen Ed Cashman, former UNE National President from 1999, if I'm not mistaken. So Ed will be what he likes to call it, the interface between himself and the elected leadership, both nationally and regionally. So with Ed's assistance, along with a consultation firm, they will be attending all of our regional seminars, all of our events, for example, health and safety, the human rights, in order to get the pulse of the membership with regards to what they would like to see in terms of structure, a different structure. Because we know that what currently exists, there are challenges. So we need the membership's input to determine what the future structure of UNE is going to morph into. So my hopes are that those who will be in attendance, the arm of the Structural Review Committee will be long-reaching, as we will ensure that we get as many membership as we can through the surveys and other opportunities to really have a part to play in the new structure of the Union of National Employees.
And it was great to see him at the regional seminar in the NCR explaining the structure of the organization, really engaging members to understand why are we even having this discussion and in what way can we benefit members by having this review. So I think, you know, it was great to see the level of engagement that the members had with Ed. You know, Ed also was the outside of Canada PSAC representative when that still existed. And so he has a lot of experience within the union. He comes with, you know, a personality that you want to share with, which, you know, is always helpful when you're getting somebody to help you. But the other thing that we really wanted to be sure of was we wanted to be sure that there was some distance between the elected branch and the structural review so that we mitigated as many conflicts of interest. Because, of course, you know, if I were doing this and I did not want to create the distance and Hayley didn't want to create the distance, we'd just do our own structural review and tell you and put a stamp on it and say, there we go, here's the structural review. The structural review is not about what we want. It's about what is in the benefit of membership at the end of the day. And so we really wanted a bit of distance between ourselves and that process so that people felt safe about sharing their views, where the hiccups are, and how we're actually going to solve some of the issues that members are facing because of how big we are, how many groups we have, and the fact that we have people internationally, right?
Correct.
It makes us quite the complex organization compared to some of our other elements.
Very layered.
Yes, very layered. So we did have the honor of getting some questions by attendees in advance, and I think this would be a great opportunity to sort of dive into some of these questions to sort of answer what's going on. So now let's move to the most important part, which is hearing from the members, Hayley.
So we have noticed and received some pre-submitted questions. So we will also take some live questions from the chat. So let's start with question one.
Question one. And this is a Statistics Canada question on the UMCC or management table. Have not occurred since fall of 2023 to 26, and yet first must be returned nationally. I think this is a question around the national labor table for the Stats Can group. Now, the unfortunate thing that's happened is that we've had consultations with the employer, and we've asked to continue to have conversations specifically related to issues that are CAPI and CADI related. So what's happened now is that most of the members of Stats Can, which were former DCCs, have been swallowed up as part of the PA table. And so there were already individuals sitting on those national tables. And so the avenue to actually get information from those tables has in some ways diminished in the capacity for the CAPIs and CADIs to hear directly what's happening with the employer. Now, we may seek other avenues to continue to lobby and push the employer. At this time, as you know, many of you know, we've put a policy grievance in because of many of the issues that we were having with the employer in terms of the interpretation of the PA collective agreement and how the employer is applying the collective agreement. But I don't want anybody to think that this has fallen off of our radar. This is why the last meeting that we had Phyllis, who came in to talk about the issues with the DCCs and the cappies and the caddies since the changeover. Obviously, we also tried to, attempt to do some remedies at the PA table with an appendix. So this has not gone away for us, and in no way do I want our Stats Canada members to think that this is not top of mind for us. Would you agree, Hayley?
I definitely agree. I think we're very aware that with the former SSO, now DCCs being moved to the core, we're very aware of the challenges that they're facing, and we're constantly trying to open up those lines of communication with the employer to ensure that their issues are given some type of visibility with the employer.
That's correct, yes. So I guess we can turn to question 2 now, which is, does the union intend to address and fight mobbing in the workplace, or at least start exploring solutions, and how could this be done? Again, another great question. Mobbing is a form of harassment and is never acceptable. The way in which UNE handles grievances or complaints is to encourage the complainant to write down times, dates, persons involved, witnesses, etc., to be able to hand off the information to an investigator or to a member of the local, like a steward, to support them, or the labor relations officer or a local representative. And from my perspective, this goes to our basic rights in the workplace and what we fought for in the collective agreement. And mobbing is another form of harassment. And I think, it is something that we are deeply committed to fighting in the workplace, because we know the long-term impacts of people being harassed in the workplace can mean long times off. It can mean, they're dealing with mental health challenges. And so it is something we take very seriously and will continue to take very seriously. And we encourage members that are facing this to actually follow up with the appropriate members of their local or support from UNE at that part.
I think it's important when someone finds themselves in this situation to seek the assistance required. There's also opportunities depending on your workspace, on who you can go to for assistance, but never forget that you have regional teams that you can call if you're not finding it at your local level, to ensure that you are protecting yourself over a very challenging and insidious form of harassment.
Exactly. And I did see that there was a follow-up on what we're doing to try to get a national labor call for the DCCs. I honestly think this is going to be very difficult to attain. And the reason why is because they are now seen as part of the PA table and have been incorporated into that larger group. I think the one place that we probably have the best odds of pushing for a separate table so that some of the issues can be addressed by the DCCs with the employer would be on the health and safety side, because their work, the nature of their work is so different than their colleagues. I think that that is the one opportunity we may have to continue to push with the employer. Unfortunately, it makes it very difficult when I go to the employer and say, I want to do a health and safety call about what's going on with the DCCs, which are cappies and caddies, and they say, well, we are not seeing any near misses, we're not seeing complaints, we're not seeing grievances. it means that I don't have the ammunition to go to the employer and say, this is a serious issue. We're dealing with a lot of these. And so we really need members to also participate in being able to move their issues forward. So I think that that's another really good way to try to get at them. So I guess we can go to the next question. How much longer does it take for expense reimbursements? And why no February rebate deposited in a conformant local? When I began signing off on financial matters, I was immediately concerned due to my extensive financial background. So we implemented a back to the basics. And by basics, I mean we went directly back to the policies and bylaws. We are experiencing a shortage in staff right now, which is being resolved through new hires. So I don't know if any of you members are looking to be employed at UNE, but we definitely have vacancies. And if you have a background in finance, we're more than happy to receive your resume. We're looking to fill those positions as soon as possible. And we'd just like to thank you for your patience as we're going through this at this time.
Correct.
Hayley?
So would you like me to?
So I know that there are a lot of questions around staffing that have been coming up. And I think this would be a great time to address some of the staffing questions that were put forward. Staffing is within the purview of the National President. Having said that, I have been briefing the National Executive on all aspects of staffing, i.e., retirements, resignations, all types of leave, etc. As the National Executive, we have agreed to launch competitions and hiring temporary staff, and we will be making sure that all future hires understand and align with UNE values. We cannot get into responding to individual situations because that would be a breach of our fiduciary duty and our responsibility to confidentiality to our staff. Hence, we're not going to discuss specifics, staff due to privacy and confidentiality. We ask that you be patient during our time of transition. And again, as you see the posters come out, if there are jobs that you're interested in, we do hope that you will apply for those positions. Now we can talk a little bit about what have been some of the contributing factors that have led UNE high amount of DFR complaints, and why does UNE stand out in this respect? And so from my perspective, the mindset was not member-centric around representation. And we're working to implement a member-centric guide that will ensure consistent representation. We want everybody to get the same level of representation across the board. And so from my perspective, leadership sets the trajectory of the organization, and we're setting a trajectory that is moving away from the old way of doing business into a new way that is very member-centric. And I would say that, I can't speak to what previous leadership's thoughts and reasons were for why they did things the way they did, but what I can tell you is that I ran on a campaign that members would be the center of every decision that we make, and the members will continue to be the center of every decision we make. You would agree with that?
I would agree 100%, yes.
And we do love our members. Okay, so we have a question around parks. And I kind of like to throw this one at you, but I think they have me answering it, but only because it's your employer group, Hayley. Why does Park Canada have a rollover period to turn long-term not have a turnover period into permanent? When will we see CS groups under the UNE umbrella move into the IT group? Many of us are performing job duties based on 1999 standards where such technologies do not even exist anymore. Well, I was just going to say that because you're part of the PA table, that They never negotiated language for the rollover.
Correct.
And that was language that was negotiated at the PA table. And of course, we can only put bargaining demands that come from bargaining members. So we would love more Parks Canada members to put forward a bargaining demand to ask for the rollover.
That's right.
I mean, it's not going to be easy to get because we know that staffing is under the purview of the employer. And so they don't want to roll it over because this gives them flexibility when they want to shrink or grow the organization. If they want to shrink the organization, if people aren't rolled over into indeterminate positions, it means that they don't have to actually initiate the WFA, which we talked about almost 2 months ago, or the SURLO process. And so the employer is very reluctant to want to get this.
Definitely.
But we as members, and I'm a member of the Parks Bargaining Unit, and I was on the Parks Bargaining Conference, and I was part of the Parks Bargaining team, and I would have loved to see that because so many times I worked with people who came into the organization who were on contract year after year without ever becoming indeterminate, and it's very hard to live a life contract to contract. And as somebody who's a union activist, I hate thinking that our members don't have a strong ability to feed their families and know that their job is as secure as it can get within the government. So I hope that this becomes a bargaining demand. I hope this gets put forward, and I'm really hoping that if there are issues with the classification, that gets sent up through your regional vice president and that gets brought up to my office, because oftentimes when we're looking at classification, it could be a policy grievance. It doesn't necessarily have to be an individual or a group grievance, and that actually is very political. So it's often handled through the office of the vice president and the president. So, and now, what are some of the things this leadership is working on to increase engagement? Do you want to try
Most
this
definitely.
one? Yeah.
So we're working with regards to the local engagement fund. So what we have decided to do is to put aside money for locals to access and engage with membership in terms of scheduling events, sending members to seminars, conferences, conventions. So I advise you, make a plan, consult your RVP, request funds to support your plan. That'll come to national, we're gonna have a look over, and then you'll be able to have an opportunity to do some actual membership engagement events. We're also talking about 2025 for UNE is packed with UNE events. We're regional seminars. We've already had our first with the NCR combined, which consisted of Ottawa NCR, Ottawa Treasury Board Gatineau, outside Canada, and separate employers. So we've already had that, and I think it was quite the success because we did see a lot of membership engagement during that regional combined seminar. So we're looking at the Health and Safety Conference, the Local President's Conference, Human Rights, and we've held the Women's Conference in October 2024. And of course, this is what we now refer to as AGM season.
Yes.
So your regional team should currently be engaged with you on holding your local elections.
Wonderful, and thank you for that, Hayley. So the next question is what is meant by the statement that financial policies need to be on industrial standards? And I'm going to kind of come to this one, but I know I'm going to flip it to you as the CFO here. But industrial standards are 1, pre-approval, 2, receipts of the goods or travel provided, and 3, a signature for a payment. So in the government, we often refer to this as Section 32, Section 33, and Section 34. And from my perspective, And for those who don't know, I have a background in commerce, and I studied in business, and I felt that we needed to implement the process that is outlined in the policy, which follows the industrial standard. And so we follow our UNE financial policies that are available on our website. Going back to the basics, we are ensuring that there is no conflict of interest in our financial dealings, and that due diligence is followed by separating the duties between the 3 stages of procurement and payment. And as you know, when I started sending things back with red marks.
So I can say from the very start, once trusteeship had turned over to leadership, our national president's eyes were glued to our finances, because during the trusteeship, we were also trying to get a better understanding of how things would work within the organization. So when things come specifically with regards to finances, it's gone over with, for lack of a better term, a fine-tooth comb to ensure that we have the necessary documentation. I don't know those on the line who are aware that as a union organization, we are a non-profit organization, which means that we get audited every year. So once you get audited every year, we must ensure that documentation is tantamount. And that is one thing our national president has been very diligent about, is ensuring that the correct documentation is attached to the correct signing authorities, so we can ensure that when it's time for audit or any other thing that has to do with our finances, that we are actually having what is required as per this leadership's fiduciary responsibility.
Yes. And you came out of nonprofit, so you know what the thresholds are and what the expectations are. So both of us are being very diligent. I think for those who've heard me say this before, I apologize, but I'm going to say it again. When I worked at Parks in management, because I was an included supervisor within Parks Canada, and I had a lot of financial responsibilities for cost centers and budgets, the 3 things that I was told is that there were 3 ways I could go to jail: financial mismanagement, a staff being hurt when I could have acted on a health and safety matter, and a visitor being injured on an action that I did not take. And so I take these responsibilities very seriously, and I especially take them seriously when I'm doing them for the membership. So Hayley and I we're on the policies and the bylaws. Ongoing issues with what progress, if any, has been made to get passport staff members correctly aligned with UNE. Recent work on this matter by one of our members indicates roughly 60% of our UNE members are not in our books and are paying dues to CEIU. Hayley, do you want to?
I do.
I can jump into, but.
So for those of you who are not aware, this issue has been ongoing for quite some time within UNE. But I can assure you that there are constant ongoing discussions with CEIU's leadership and our national president. However, if the employer misaligns these employees from the time they are hired, of course it will take time and local involvement to ensure that the misalignment is sorted out, right? We rely on the local to let us know which members are misaligned and encourages them to sign a UNE union card and notify us so we can approach CEIU with the new information to have the members correctly aligned within the UNE family.
Yeah, well, and as you know, this has been a decades plus issue with CEIU. And obviously with the shuffling of departments, members got moved around. Now, the talks are continuous. I know that even Sean Walker has been part of the discussions. I'm trying to be very transparent with the national executive in terms of their participation in a lot of these discussions. And I think that, you know, yes, Hayley and I are the two elected full-time officers, but you've elected a national executive to make decisions for the organization. And I feel like if we don't include them in those decision-making processes, we don't have all the necessary information that we need to actually serve membership well. And I think from that perspective, both Hayley and I have taken a very open approach to the national executive. And I think that's just a style, you know, that we feel that members should be very involved, that you've elected. You've elected these individuals to be leadership, and we work with them to be leaders. And now we're on to another question, which is the election for the VPRA, l'élection du VPR.
The election of assistant RVPs in Quebec. When will that happen? It will start tomorrow. So in Quebec, get ready to elect your next assistant VPR in Quebec. I'm eager to see the results, to see who you will choose to be assistant RVPs in Quebec.
Asked for, and so one of them was what is about mobbing. Mobbing is a situation that often happens where a group of individuals in a workplace target one worker within that work group. They either alienate them, exclude them, or they can be aggressive towards them. And so it takes many forms, but it is usually targeted and coordinated in terms of how it happens. And oftentimes this happens in workplaces where you know, there's been a long-standing group, new people come in, and they're often seen as the outsider, and they're treated differently than the rest of the group within the organization. The next one is that we were asked what a DFR is. So a DFR is a complaint that can be made against a union for not meeting its legal obligations to represent membership. So, and this is a liability to the organization. So if a local or an individual decides not to represent a member in an arbitrary, discriminatory, or bad faith manner, they can then put a complaint against the union and get redress for not being represented. Obviously, you can imagine as members, you're all paying dues, and part of those dues is to go for us to represent you, and specifically, that is the charter that UNE has, is to represent members. If we don't represent members, then members can bring complaints against us as an organization to the board or to an arbitrator and ask for redress from those, the individuals at the board to support them for the failure, if it's so decided that the union failed to actually represent the member on those three grounds: arbitrary, discriminatory, and bad faith. And so that is what DFRs are linked to. I think we're coming close to the end here. I think that we may have time. 3 minutes. Yes. So this year is coming up full of events, Hayley.
Yes.
We've had our first regional seminar.
We've had our first regional
combined seminar, and I have to say, well done, great job for the RVPs that put that one together. I think one of the highlights, at least for me, was the mock convention. It was great to see the members so engaged and so active. and really get in the flow of how convention is going to happen. What was one of the highlights for you,
I think
Hayley?
one of the highlights for me really was the combination of two past presidents, Heather and Ed Cashman, really discussing the structural review. I think why it was one of my favorites is because those in the space had the opportunity to actually learn about what UNE structure is now, because oftentimes the membership is not even aware of the current structure, much less having an opportunity to think about something new.
Yeah.
Right? So watching them be provided with this knowledge and seeing the questioning that came out of that session, I was really proud that we had the opportunity, and it really gave us food for thought in terms of what type of even education that our membership needs with regards to understanding certain aspects of their union.
Right. I would agree. And I tell the story all the time of how I figured out what the union was, is that I infiltrated the union. I thought, who are these union guys and or ladies and people, siblings, and what are they doing? And I realized that I was one of them. And I was like, wait a second, the union is not the person I call at the local or the steward or the president. All of us are the union. All of the members that make up the union are union members. And so, it's really interesting to see other structures and to see what our structure could be and how we could best serve the membership and be very strategic about how we go about serving membership. And I think both of us are committed to actually advancing how we represent members. Now, in terms of specific training that we're looking at, I think, what we're looking at is when we hear from members that there's specific training that is needed, then we look at how big is the need and which way could we facilitate the training, which would be the best way that we could facilitate this type of training. Would it be online? Would it be a different way? And I know that from my perspective, there's been quite a few challenges when a local goes out of conformance to actually get the bank to sign over and get them back into conformance, especially on the finance side. So it is definitely something we're taking a very hard look at. But we also have to realize that, we've had a shortened mandate. We only got the reins of the organization on March 8th and started signing off and making full authoritative decisions about the organization after March 8th. And so we have to prioritize the things that will have the most impact for all the memberships. And we would love to do some training on the finances for trustees. I think that would be a great type of training. Which method and how, that remains to be seen. And I think you and I have had this discussion quite a bit in our previous car rides, that we really want to look at what training would be helpful to the membership, what training is PSAC already offering, what is CLC offering, and complement those, not recreate them. And so we're really looking at the fact that, we to engage members, they need to feel empowered, they need to have the knowledge to make decisions. So we really want to be in those spaces so that members can feel like they're actually moving the organization forward.
I think, too, one of the things we should discuss, too, as that I feel within this mandate that we've really worked on is being able to feed into PSAC regional in order to utilize funds to train specifically local executives, right? So we're working diligently with those regional leaders from PSAC in an attempt to have them work for us, for our members, our local executives. So should a need be identified, let's say they want an understanding of their collective agreement, that's something PSAC does. A short brief if you want to call it that, is written up. It identifies who is going to pay for what, and then we're able to actually have some targeted training for the local executives. And I've really seen an increase in that within UNE regions, which means that we're actively trying to access those funds in order to have those that are sitting as local executives to give them the training that they have identified that they need. So it's not coming from us, it's coming from what they have identified. And I think that's a really pivotal move.
Yeah. And I really think that the work that we're doing with Ed is going to further inform that. I think, you know, we look at the organization and whether it's serving membership, who is it serving, and when it is serving the people that it's currently serving, who gets left behind, right? And those are really key discussions that you need to have in an organization to ensure that we aren't leaving members behind. We are not leaving siblings behind that need our support and help as we do this work. And I think from that perspective, we've really taken an approach of member-centric. And, you know, it would be very easy for me to, you know, to focus on other things, but we are very much about building an organization that is focused on membership. And, you know, I say this to Hayley all the time. It wasn't like 18 months ago that I was still a member, you know, needing services from the organization. And so I'm not that far away from their situation and knowing what it's like to be a member. And I hope I never forget what it's like to be a member at the end of the day, because I know what I needed and where you know, I had to go finding resources for myself. And I think that this really provides us an opportunity to make the resources available to membership. So I think that we're headed in a pretty good direction with this. So I have some closing remarks. I don't know if you want to go first with your closing remarks, and then I can do some closing remarks.
I do. I want to thank those of you who logged on this evening. I know your evenings after a day of work, a day of doing possibly activism from the side of your desks. You're taking time away from your family and your time for self-care to be here with us. So that is very much appreciated. This town hall is just a way that for us to attempt to stay connected to the membership. You know, coming out of a COVID situation, a lockdown, where people have become very accustomed to living, playing, working in a silo, to now really trying to recreate avenues for engagement and ways to reconnect in a really fulsome and tangible way. And this town hall is just a way for us to try and do that. So we encourage you to stay engaged, ask the questions, and of course, always, and I mean always, keep fighting for your rights. That is your right. Thank you. Alisha.
Thank you, Hayley. And I think you know, like, we have a jam-packed next couple of months to get us to convention. I mean, I think we spent a good chunk of the beginning of our mandate figuring out what had happened during the trusteeship and try to advance some of those items so that we could clear out the backlog. And that in of itself took a tremendous amount of energy in the beginning. So we couldn't even get to the current work of the members. And I remember people were frustrated, and I get it, because we'd been in trusteeship, and then we come out of trusteeship, and it's almost like we think everything is going to start to work immediately. But really, there was a lot of backlog that we had to look at in terms of things that had happened in the previous mandate that hadn't been moved forward or hadn't been completed. And so we had to get through that. And then as we started to take over and we started to analyze the situation from a forensic perspective, we went sort of area by area, right? We started with the finance, and then we started to implement some of the representation pieces and looking at how we were going to do that differently with a lens to the membership. So I think, that in and of itself was, I would say, most of our summer, right, where we were having these discussions about how we're going to do this and, which way are we going to move forward? How can we best serve the membership? And really always bringing it back to the members at the end of the day. And then, there's also, we're activists. And when we say fight for your rights, we always say, and I always do this with your employers, I am very firm on the issues, but I am extremely kind to the people. And that's because we don't know what people are showing up with. We don't know what's happening in their personal lives. We don't know what's happening in their workspaces. We don't know what is going on for those employers. But what we aren't going to do is let them trample over our members' rights. But we don't have to do it in a way that is, abrasive or, that comes at them in a way that makes them less engaged to sitting at the table with us. Because ultimately, if we can't have those difficult discussions with your employers, we can't move your rights forward and we can't defend them if we're not doing that. So that's another part that I think for both of us, when we sit with the employer groups and, the terms of reference decide how many times we meet with them. And, we meet with them, we renew the terms of reference, we consult with the members. It is not just a one-off. And then we've assigned individuals to committees, and then they leave or they take a new position, and we have to assign new people. And we definitely, always want that to be members that are working hard within their organizations to advance the issues of their members within the workplace. And I think that it lends itself to having a collaborative relationship so that when we do need to be hard on the employer because we're not in agreement, we've built up the capacity and the relationship to have those very difficult discussions. So I think that's been another sort of key point that we've taken on. And then there's the time that's coming up, which from my perspective, if we thought the first part of the mandate was busy, I can only imagine what the second half of the mandate is going to look like. We've had the NCR regional joint seminar, but now we have all the other ones. And we're lucky that some of you are combining them. That's going to be a help to us, definitely, to be there and be engaged with the members. I think that that's going to be great. We have the All Presidents Conference coming up. Actually, we just approved the branding for that, which, your committee is doing a great job in putting this together and getting us on track for the All Presidents. And I'm looking forward to engaging with the presidents and hearing their issues. I think you and I have talked about this. Out of 176 locals, with as many groups that we have, the issues are so varied. One local's dealing with one set of problems, another local's dealing with something completely different, right? And it's so interesting to see the variety of issues that our members are dealing with across the organization. And so from that perspective, I think it's been an honor to sit at the tables with the employers and to be able to represent the issues that the members have, but also to sit with the RVPs at those tables or with members of the UNE staff that are raising issues for our members. So I think that's been a tremendous honor for me. You feel much the same?
I feel much the same in terms of being present. For me, it's been an opportunity to really learn about the culture of very individualized and specialized groups. So for instance, I sit at Parks. It's not something I'm familiar with. I'm from ESDC. So I have really been able to submerge myself by being in that space and hearing the employer's perspective, having the support of the NLRO that is assigned to that group, who I speak with in order to get a fulsome understanding of what is happening within the park's environment. It hasn't hurt as well that I've been able to actually visit and see some of the conditions that parks employees work under, be it the fires in Jasper or watching people work out of basements and be completely happy about it. So it's certainly brought about some new perspectives for me in terms of what our membership goes through in terms of how it relates to their employment. Right? So for me, it's really about understanding and learning how our members work and the issues that are and aren't important to them.
Nous avons eu une
We've had a very important discussion today, and we thank you for participating actively. Thank you for your commitment, which is essential for advancing the union's issues.
We are stronger together. If you have any follow-up questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us or your local representatives or even your RVPs. Thank you all, and let's keep moving forward together and build a stronger UNE.